Ambassador Lehanna stood alone in the center of the great hall. Around her, 1,000 alien faces looked down from their seats. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had skin that glowed in strange colors. All of them were watching her with the same expression. It was the look of adults watching a child try to speak at their table. The Galactic Assembly Hall was the largest structure in known space. It floated in the darkness between stars, a station so massive that it had its own weather. For 10,000 years, the great species of the galaxy had gathered here to make laws and settle disputes. Humanity had been allowed to join only 120 years ago. They were the youngest members, the weakest members, the members that everyone else had learned to ignore. Hannah took a deep breath. This was her 47th time standing in this spot. 47 times she had come before the assembly with evidence. 47 times she had asked for justice. 47 times she had been denied. Today would be different. She just did not know it yet. High Speaker Vel raised one of his forearms for silence. He was Tirani, an ancient species that had ruled this assembly for 3,000 years. His gray skin was wrinkled with age, and his eyes held the boredom of someone who had seen everything and found it all disappointing. "The representative from Earth may speak," Vel said. His voice echoed through the hall. Hannah activated her display screen. Images appeared in the air above her head, visible to everyone in the chamber. 6 months ago, the Nolari Empire began mining operations on 3 human colony worlds. These worlds are legally protected under the settlement. Treaty of 2289. The Nolari have taken minerals worth 4 billion credits. They have forced 12,000 human colonists to leave their homes. She changed the image. 4 months ago, we discovered that Tirani agents had stolen the genetic codes for 17 of our food crops. These crops were developed over decades by human scientists. They now grow on Tirani worlds without any payment to Earth. Another image. 2 months ago, the Trade Coalition raised tariffs on human medical exports by 800%. 3 of our frontier colonies could not afford to import food. 19,000 people starved. Children starved. Hannah lowered her hand. The images disappeared. She looked up at High Speaker Vel. "I am here to request enforcement of the treaties that protect human territory and human lives." Silence filled the hall. Then, slowly, Councillor Breath of the Nolari Empire began to laugh. Others joined him. Within seconds, the great hall was filled with the sound of alien laughter. Vel did not laugh. But he did not stop the others either. He waited until the sound died down, then spoke in his tired voice. "The Assembly has reviewed Earth's complaints. We find that the Nolari mining operations fall under the Resource Sharing Agreement of 2301. The genetic research was conducted jointly and therefore belongs to all parties. The tariff increases are within the rights of the Trade Coalition." He waved one hand dismissively. "Earth's request is denied." Again, more laughter. Merchant Lord Keth, the fat creature who ran the Trade Coalition, called out from his seat. Perhaps the humans should focus on growing stronger instead of complaining. They have only been in space for 200 years. They are babies crying for milk. The laughter grew louder. Hannah stood perfectly still. Her face showed nothing. Inside, something was breaking. Not her spirit. Her patience. Her communication device vibrated against her wrist. She looked down and saw the message. It was from Earth. From the United Government. From everyone. She read it twice to make sure she understood. Then she looked up at the assembly. At the 1,000 faces that had mocked humanity for over a century. At the species that had stolen from them, lied to them, and laughed at their suffering. "High Speaker," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Several aliens stopped laughing. Something in her tone made them uncomfortable. Vel looked at her with mild curiosity. "Yes, I have a message from the United Earth Government." She paused. The hall became quiet. "Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. All treaties between humanity and Assembly members are void. All borders of human space are closed. Any ship that enters human territory without permission will be destroyed. There will be no warnings. There will be no negotiations. There will be no exceptions. She turned off her display and began walking toward the exit. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the hall exploded into noise. Aliens shouted questions and demands. Some laughed again, thinking this was a joke or a bluff. Others looked confused, unsure what this meant. Counselor Breath stood up. You cannot do this. The treaties require 5 years' notice before withdrawal. Hannah stopped at the door. She turned back to look at him. You just ruled that treaties do not apply to humanity. Thank you for that. She walked out. High Speaker Vel watched her go. For the first time in many years, he felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was worry. She is bluffing, Merchant Lord Keth said loudly. Humans need us. They need our technology. They need our trade. They will come crawling back within a month. Vel said nothing. He was remembering something. A report from 50 years ago, when he was young. A human diplomat had said something odd during a private meeting. Vel had dismissed it at the time as meaningless boasting. The human had said, "My people have a saying. The patient tiger waits in tall grass. When it moves, it is already too late to run." Vel had laughed then. He was not laughing now. Far below the assembly hall, Lee Hannah boarded her shuttle. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. The waiting was over. The pretending was over. For 120 years, humanity had smiled while being robbed. They had bowed while being insulted. They had played weak while growing strong. The shuttle lifted off and headed toward the jump gate that would take her home. As the station grew smaller behind her, Hannah allowed herself a small smile. They have no idea what they have done, she whispered to herself. No idea what is coming. In the halls of the assembly, the aliens were already forgetting about Earth. They were dividing up human territory on their maps. They were planning which colonies to take first. They were celebrating the departure of the annoying young species that bothered them for so long. None of them knew that humanity had been waiting for this moment. None of them knew about the ships, the weapons, the plans that had been made in secret for generations. None of them knew that the galaxy was about to change forever, and by the time they understood, it would be far too late. 3 months passed after humanity left the Galactic Assembly. In that time, the galaxy celebrated. Alien politicians gave speeches about how the troublesome humans had finally gone away. Merchant Lord Keth threw a party that lasted for 2 weeks. Counselor Breath announced that Nolari ships would soon claim all of Earth's outer colonies. Everyone was happy, everyone except the traders. The first sign of trouble came quietly. A Turani hospital ran out of a medicine called Renthal. It was a simple drug that cured a common infection. The Turani had used it for decades. What they had forgotten was that Renthal only grew on Earth. Nowhere else in the galaxy had the right soil and sunlight to produce it. Within a month, 18 Turani medical centers reported shortages. Within 2 months, people started dying from infections that should have been easy to cure. Similar problems appeared everywhere. A metal called Terran steel, which humans had traded cheaply for years, was suddenly unavailable. This metal was used in the engines of most civilian spacecraft. Without it, ships could not be repaired. The Nolari discovered that half their merchant fleet would be grounded within a year. Food was the worst problem. Humanity had been the galaxy's largest food producer. Their crops grew faster, tasted better, and cost less than anyone else's. Dozens of species had become dependent on human food without realizing it. Now those species were facing hunger, but Merchant Lord Keth was not worried about food or medicine. He was worried about money. Human space contained 12 major trade routes. Controlling those routes meant controlling trillions of credits in commerce. He was not going to let some primitive species block him from that wealth. Send the trade fleet, he ordered. The humans are bluffing. They do not have the power to stop us. 200 merchant ships jumped into the Sol system on a bright Tuesday morning. They carried goods worth billions of credits. They expected to land on Earth, make their sales, and return home rich. None of them were ever seen again. There was no battle, no distress calls, no debris. The ships simply vanished. One moment they were there, and the next they were gone. It was as if the universe had swallowed them whole. Keth refused to believe the reports. He sent probes to investigate. The probes also vanished. He sent a second fleet, smaller this time. 50 ships entered human space. 50 ships disappeared. This is impossible, Keth said to the assembly. Ships do not simply vanish. The humans must be hiding them somewhere. This is a trick. High Speaker Vel was not so sure. He had spent the last 3 months trying to contact Earth. Every message went unanswered. Every diplomatic channel was closed. Human space had become a wall of silence, and behind that wall, something was waiting. Commander Oryx of the Galactic Defense Force requested permission to send a military expedition. He was the greatest warrior the Assembly had ever produced. His fleet had won 43 battles without a single defeat. He was confident that whatever was happening in human space, his ships could handle it. Vel gave his approval. 500 warships gathered at the border of human territory. They were the finest vessels in the galaxy, armed with weapons that had crushed a dozen rebellions. Oryx himself commanded from the flagship, a massive destroyer called the Eternal. Judge the fleet crossed into human space near a small colony world called New. Busan Oryx had chosen this location because intelligence suggested it was lightly defended. He expected to find farmers and miners, not soldiers. He was wrong. The first warning came 6 hours after they crossed the border. A human voice spoke over every communication channel at once. It was a woman's voice, calm and cold. You have entered restricted space. Turn back now. This is your only warning. Oryx laughed. He ordered his fleet to continue forward. They had come too far to turn back because of a recorded message. The attack came from nowhere. One moment the space around them was empty. The next moment it was filled with fire. Ships exploded before their shields could activate. Weapons that Oryx had never seen tore through armor like paper. His fleet tried to fight back, but they were shooting at shadows. The human ships moved too fast to track. They appeared, fired, and vanished before anyone could aim at them. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes. 498 ships were destroyed. Oryx's flagship was among them. The commander died without ever seeing the face of his enemy. 2 ships survived. One was too damaged to move. The other, a small scout vessel, managed to reach the border and escape into friendly space. Inside was a single Nolari officer named Pell. He had been a communications specialist, not a warrior. He had hidden in a storage compartment while his crewmates died around him. When rescue ships found him, Pell was curled in a corner, shaking. His eyes were empty. He could only say one thing, over and over again. They were waiting. They knew we were coming. They have been preparing. They have been preparing for so long. The assembly received the news in stunned silence. 500 ships destroyed in 30 minutes. Commander Oryx dead. The greatest military force in the galaxy crushed like insects under a boot. Counselor, Ref demanded to know how this was possible. For 120 years, humans had shown themselves to be weak. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were outdated. Their military was small and poorly trained. Everyone knew this. Everyone had seen it with their own eyes, but High Speaker Vel understood now. He understood the terrible truth that should have been obvious from the beginning. They had only seen what the humans wanted them to see. For over a century, humanity had hidden their true strength. They had played the role of the weak young species while secretly building something else. Something powerful. Something that had been waiting in the darkness for this exact moment. Vel tried one more time to contact Earth. He sent a message pleading for peace, for negotiation, for any kind of communication. He waited for hours, then days, then weeks. There was no response. Only silence. And somewhere deep in human space, Admiral Park Jun-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Around him floated 3,000 warships that the galaxy had never known existed. Ships with weapons that could crack moons. Ships with engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Ships crewed by humans who had waited their entire lives for this moment. They are afraid now, said Captain Choi Do-yoon, standing beside him. What do we do next? Junho looked at the stars on his display screen. Each star represented a species that had laughed at humanity. Each star represented years of insults and theft and suffering. We wait a little longer, he said. Let them feel what we felt. Let them know what it is like to be helpless. And then we will show them exactly what humanity has become. The galaxy had wanted humans gone. Now they would learn to regret that wish. 6 months after humanity left the assembly, the galaxy was falling apart. Merchant Lord Keth stood before the Emergency Council and tried to explain the numbers. Trade had dropped by 40%. 15 species were facing food shortages. The medical crisis had spread to 32 worlds. Factories were closing because they could not get the materials they needed. Ships were grounded because there was no fuel to power them. How did this happen? Demanded Counselor Breath. Humans were nothing. They were weak. They were unimportant. How can their absence cause this much damage? Keth did not have a good answer. The truth was embarrassing. For over a century, the galaxy had been secretly dependent on humanity. Human food fed billions. Human medicine saved millions. Human materials built the ships and stations that everyone used. The great species of the assembly had been so busy laughing at humans that they never noticed how much they needed them. Now they were paying the price. High Speaker. Bell received daily reports of disasters. The Tirani homeworld was rationing medicine. The Nolari economy had crashed. 3 smaller species were on the edge of civil war because their governments could not feed their people. Everyone was looking to the assembly for solutions, but Vel had none to give. We must find a way to enter human space, he said. We must negotiate. We must trade. We cannot survive without them. But every attempt to contact Earth failed. Ships that crossed the border disappeared. Messages went unanswered. The wall of silence remained unbroken. Then came the day that changed everything. It started with a single ship. The vessel appeared at the edge of Nolari space without warning. It was human in design, but unlike any human ship that anyone had seen before. It was sleek and dark with smooth curves and no visible weapons. It moved through space like a predator, slow and confident. The Nolari defense fleet moved to intercept. 30 warships surrounded the human vessel and demanded its surrender. They received no response. The human ship simply continued forward, ignoring them completely. The Nolari commander ordered his ships to open fire. 100 weapons unleashed their fury at the intruder. Energy beams and missiles struck the human ship from every direction. Nothing happened. The weapons hit something invisible a few meters from the hull and vanished. No explosions, no damage, no effect at all. The human ship reached the largest Nolari military station. It's a massive structure that housed 50,000 soldiers and controlled all defense operations in the sector. The station's weapons opened fire. Again, nothing happened. The human ship ignored the attacks completely. Then it fired back. A single beam of white light shot from the front of the vessel. It touched the station for less than 1 second. When the light faded, the station was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Gone, vaporized into atoms. 50,000 Nolari soldiers died in an instant. The human ship turned and flew away. As it left, it broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. The voice belonged to Captain Choi Do-yan of the battleship Eternal Soul. The Nolari Empire stole from human colonies. You took our resources. You forced our people from their homes. You were asked to return what you took. You refused? This station was your first warning. You have 30 days to return everything you stole. If you do not, we will return. And next time, we will not stop at one station. The message ended. The human ship vanished into the darkness. Panic spread across the galaxy. The Nolari demanded that the assembly protect them. Counselor Breath screamed that this was an act of war. But no one knew how to fight an enemy that could not be hurt. No one knew how to stop a species that could destroy a space station with a single shot. Dr. Yoon Min-gi's name became known to the galaxy for the first time. She was the head of Human Defense Research, a secret organization that had existed for 80 years. Intelligence agents managed to steal some of her files. What they found terrified everyone. Humanity had been lying about everything. Their ships were not slow. They had developed engines that could travel faster than light without using jump gates. While other species waited in line at the gates, human ships could go anywhere instantly. Their weapons were not weak. They had created energy systems that made assembly technology look like toys. A single human battleship carried more firepower than an entire Nolari fleet. Their shields were not primitive. They had invented barriers that absorbed any attack and converted the energy into more power for their own weapons. The more you shot at a human ship, the stronger it became. For 120 years, humanity had shown the galaxy fake ships and fake weapons. They had pretended to be weak while building the most advanced military in history. They had smiled and bowed while preparing for the day when smiling and bowing would no longer be necessary. That day had arrived. General Kong Taiho appeared on every news channel in the galaxy. He was an old man with gray hair and cold eyes. He wore the black uniform of Earth's military command. Behind him stood a wall of screens showing human warships, thousands of them waiting in the darkness. For 120 years, we tried to be your friends, he said. We shared our food. We shared our medicine. We shared everything we had. And in return, you stole from us. You lied to us. You laughed at us while our children starved. He paused. His eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer in the galaxy. We asked for justice. You denied us. We asked for respect. You mocked us. We asked for fairness. You gave us nothing but contempt. His voice grew harder, so we stopped asking. We stopped smiling. We stopped pretending to be weak. And now you see what we really are. Now you understand what you created. Stepped closer to the camera. The Nolari had 30 days. After that, we will come for the tyranny who stole our crops. Then the trade coalition who starved our colonies. Then everyone else who hurt us and thought we would never fight back. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You wanted us gone from your assembly. Congratulations, now you will learn to miss us. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings sat in silence. They had spent over a century treating humans like servants and fools. Now those servants were coming with fire and steel, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. The Nolari Empire refused to surrender. Counselor Breath stood before his people and declared that they would never bow to primitive humans. He called humanity cowards and thieves. He promised that the great Nolari war machine would crush Earth and take everything they had. His speech was broadcast across the galaxy, and for a moment, other species felt hope. Maybe the Nolari could stop the humans. Maybe everything would be okay. That hope lasted exactly 72 hours, Admiral. Park Junho gave the order at midnight on a Tuesday. 3,000 human warships emerged from hiding and entered Nolari space. They moved in perfect formation, spreading across the Empire like a dark wave. Their engines made no sound. Their weapons glowed with quiet power. They looked like death itself coming to collect a debt. The Nolari had 800 warships. They were proud vessels with long histories of victory. Their commanders were experienced warriors who had never lost a battle. They formed defensive lines around their most important worlds and prepared to fight. The battle was over before it really began. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They struck from angles that should have been impossible. They fired weapons that the Nolari could not see until it was too late. One by one, the proud warships of the Empire exploded and died. Their crews never even saw who killed them. In 72 hours, the entire Nolari military was destroyed. Every warship, every station, every weapon platform. Admiral Junho's forces swept through the Empire and left nothing but wreckage behind, but they did not touch the planets. This was the part that confused everyone. The humans could have bombed Nolari worlds into dust. They could have killed billions. They had the power to wipe the entire species from existence. Instead, they destroyed only military targets. Civilians were left alone. Cities were untouched. Even the factories that built weapons were merely disabled, not destroyed. When reporters asked General Kung Taiho why humanity showed such restraint, his answer was simple. We are not monsters. We are not like them. We came for justice, not genocide. The Nulari people did not steal from us. Their leaders did. Their military did. Those are the ones who paid the price. Counselor Breath was captured alive. Human soldiers found him hiding in a bunker beneath his palace. They did not hurt him. They simply put him on a ship and took him away. No one knew where. The galaxy watched in shock. The Great Nulari Empire, one of the oldest military powers in the Assembly, had fallen in 3 days. Their entire fleet was gone. Their government had collapsed, and humanity had done it with almost no losses of their own. High Speaker Vel knew he had to act. He gathered his courage and traveled to the edge of human space. His ship carried no weapons and flew under a flag of peace. He came alone, without guards or advisors. He came to beg. For 7 days, his ship floated in empty space. No one came. No one answered his calls. Vel began to wonder if humanity would simply leave him there forever, lone and forgotten, the way they had felt for over a century. On the 8th day, a human shuttle appeared. It carried Ambassador Lee Hanna. She boarded Vel's ship and sat across from him in his private chamber. She looked different than before, harder. Her eyes held no warmth, no hope of friendship. She looked at Vel the way someone might look at an insect. "Hi, Speaker," she said. "You wished to speak." Vel bowed his head. "Ambassador, I come to offer peace. The Tirani people regret the actions of the past. We are willing to pay reparations. We will return everything we took from Earth. We will sign any treaty you wish. Please, we only ask that you stop." Hannah did not respond immediately. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. An image appeared in the air between them. It showed a young human girl, maybe 10 years old, lying on a hospital bed. Her body was thin and weak. Her eyes were empty. Her name was Kim Soy, Hannah said. She lived on a frontier colony called Bright Hope. When the Trade Coalition raised tariffs on medical imports, her family could not afford the medicine she needed. She died 3 weeks later. She was one of 19,000, and it changed the image. It showed an old man sitting in the ruins of his home. This is Baek Junwoo. He was a farmer on New Busan. When the Nulari came to mine his land, they gave him 1 day to leave. His family had worked that farm for 4 generations. He lost everything. More images appeared. Hungry children, homeless families, grieving parents, hundreds of faces, thousands of stories, all showing the same truth. Humanity had suffered while the galaxy laughed. "You want peace," Hannah said. "You want us to stop. You want everything to go back to the way it was." She leaned forward. "Tell me, High Speaker, did you offer peace to Kim Soye? Did you offer peace to Baek Junwoo? Did anyone in your assembly care when our people were dying?" Vel could not meet her eyes. "We did not know. We did not understand. You did not want to know. You did not want to understand. We came to your assembly 47 times. 47 times we showed you proof of what was happening. 47 times you chose to look away." She stood up. "The Galactic Assembly is finished. The old treaties are void. There will be a new order, and humanity will decide what it looks like. You can accept this, or you can fight us. We both know how that would end." Vel looked up at her. "What do you want from us? Everything you took, everything you destroyed, everything you laughed at while our people suffered?" Her voice was ice. "War crimes tribunals for those who gave the orders. Public apologies from every species that participated. In a new assembly where humanity holds permanent veto power over all decisions, that would mean the end of our civilization as we know it." Hannah picked up her device and walked toward the door. She stopped and looked back at the ancient alien leader. "Your civilization was built on our suffering. It deserves to end." She left without another word. Merchant Lord Keth tried one last desperate move. He organized an economic blockade against humanity. Every species in the galaxy would refuse to trade with Earth. without resources from outside. The humans would have to negotiate. The blockade lasted 1 week. Then Dr. Yoon Mingi held a press conference. She announced that human scientists had developed synthetic versions of every resource they had previously imported. They did not need Tirani crystals. They did not need Nolari fuel. They did not need anything from the galaxy at all. Earth was completely self-sufficient. The blockade had no effect. Keth resigned that same day. His trade empire collapsed within a month. The old galaxy was dying, and humanity was deciding what would replace it. 1 year after humanity left the Galactic Assembly, the galaxy looked completely different. The old assembly hall still floated in the darkness between stars, but it was empty now. Its lights had gone dark. Its chambers were silent. 10,000 years of history had ended in 12 months. The great powers that had ruled the galaxy were broken and humbled. A new age had begun. They called it the Terran Accords. Representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered on Earth for the first time in history. They came to the city of Seoul, where a new council building had been constructed in just 6 months. It was a beautiful structure of glass and steel, designed to show the galaxy what humanity could build when they stopped pretending to be weak. Ambassador Hannah stood at the center of the Great Hall. She was no longer an ambassador. She was the first human high speaker elected by the people of Earth to lead the new galactic government. Around her sat representatives from 100 species. Some had been enemies. Some had been thieves. All of them now answered to humanity. "The old ways are finished," Hannah said to the assembly. For 10,000 years, the strong took from the weak. The old crushed the young. Power was the only law. That era is over. She walked among the seated representatives, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Under the Terran Accords, all species are equal. No nation may steal from another. No empire may exploit the weak. Trade will be fair. Treaties will be honored. And those who break these rules will answer to us. She stopped in front of Counselor Breath, who sat in chains. He had been tried for war crimes against humanity. The evidence against him filled 1,000 files. The verdict was guilty. "You once laughed at humanity," Hannah said to him. "You called us babies crying for milk. Tell me, Counselor, are you laughing now?" Breath said nothing. His eyes were empty. The proud leader who had once mocked humanity was broken. His empire was gone. His power was dust. He would spend the rest of his life in a human prison, thinking about the mistakes he had made. Hannah turned away from him. "Let the record show that justice has been served." The reparations began flowing immediately. The Tirani paid for every crop they had stolen. The trade coalition compensated every family that had suffered from their tariffs. The Nolari surrendered all the resources they had taken from human colonies. Trillions of credits moved from alien accounts to human ones. It was not revenge. It was balance. Admiral Park Jun-ho retired on a quiet morning in spring. He had led humanity through its greatest crisis and brought them victory without losing his soul. His final speech was broadcast across the galaxy. "We did not want this war," he said. "We did not want to fight. For over a century, we asked only to be treated as equals. We asked for respect. We asked for fairness. We asked for the basic dignity that every species deserves." He paused, looking out at the stars. "You refused. You laughed. You stole. You let our children die. And so we stopped asking. We stopped waiting. We became what you forced us to become." His voice grew softer. "But we chose not to become monsters. We destroyed your fleets, but we did not destroy your worlds. We broke your power, but we did not break your people. We won, but we did not become you." Straightened his uniform one last time. "Remember this. Remember what happens when you push the weak too far. Remember what happens when you laugh at suffering. Remember humanity." He walked away from the camera. He was never seen in public again. Captain Choi Do-yeon received a promotion. He became Admiral Choi, commander of the new peacekeeping fleet. His ships patrolled the galaxy, ensuring that no species could ever exploit another. The Eternal Soul, his beloved battleship, became the flagship of this new force. It was a symbol of humanity's strength and mercy. Our job is not to conquer, Doyen told his crews. Our job is to protect. The strong must defend the weak. That is what we were denied. That is what we will give to others. Dr. Yoon Minji opened the doors of human science to the galaxy. Slowly, carefully, she shared the technologies that humanity had developed in secret. Faster engines, better medicine, cleaner energy. She gave these gifts not to the powerful, but to the poor. The species that had never exploited humanity received help first. Those who had been cruel would have to wait and earn trust. Knowledge should not be hoarded, Minji said. It should be shared. But it must be earned through respect, not stolen through treachery. General Kang Tai-ho established the Terran Guard. These soldiers were stationed throughout the former assembly space. Their mission was to protect the weak from the strong, to ensure that no species would ever suffer as humanity had suffered. They wore black uniforms and carried weapons that could level cities, but their orders were to use force only as a last resort. We are not conquerors, Tai-ho told them. We are guardians. The galaxy taught us what it means to be powerless. We will never let anyone feel that way again. Years passed. The new order stabilized. Trade flourished under fair rules. Species that had been enemies learned to work together. The dark times faded into memory. A new generation grew up knowing only peace. One day, a young alien diplomat visited High Speaker Lee Hanna in her office. He was Turani, barely more than a child by the standards of his long-lived species. He had grown up hearing stories about humanity's vengeance, about the terrible war that had destroyed the old galaxy. "High Speaker," he asked nervously, "I have always wondered something. When humanity had the power to destroy us all, why did you stop? Why did you not take revenge for everything we did to you?" Hannah was old now. Her hair had turned gray. Her face was lined with the weight of years, but her eyes were still sharp, still clear. She looked at the young diplomat for a long moment. "Because we remembered," she said finally. "We remembered what it felt like to be powerless. We remembered the pain of being mocked and ignored and exploited. We remembered the helplessness of watching our children suffer while no one cared." She stood and walked to her window. Outside, the city of Seoul gleamed in the sunlight. Ships from 100 worlds filled the sky. It was a galaxy at peace. It could have become what we fought against. We could have made you suffer as we suffered. We could have built our empire on your broken bodies. She turned back to face him, but then we would have lost ourselves. We would have become the monsters we hated. She smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young ambassador who had walked out of the assembly hall so many years ago. Humanity chose a different path. We chose to be what we wished others had been for us. We chose to be protectors instead of destroyers. We chose to build instead of break. She placed her hand on the young diplomat's shoulder. That is why we stopped. That is why we showed mercy. Because the galaxy needed someone to show them a better way. And if not us, then who? The young Turani nodded slowly. He understood now. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through strength alone. They had won through something stronger. They had won through being better than those who had wronged them, and that was a victory that would last forever.